President Donald Trump says he may impose 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico as early as February 1st, while promising punitive measures in other countries as part of new U.S. trade policy. He also comments on his plans for the U.S. to acquire Greenland and says Russian President Vladimir Putin is destroying Russia by not making a deal to end the war with Ukraine. And to talk about this, we're joined by Professor XN Iraki, an economist who joins from University of Nairobi. Good morning. Glad to have you join me on the news.
Good morning, and how are you? Greetings from the warmest city of Mombasa.
All right. Thank you for joining. How would you describe the second coming of Trump, affecting existing U.S. Africa trade agreements like the AGOA?
I think there is a matter of concern from a number of countries, because if you remember his speeches, the speeches he made during his first term, they were not very positive towards Africa. But one of the biggest fears is about African Growth and Opportunity Act. I remember it was negotiated by President Joe Biden, and we believe that President Donald Trump is going to extend it. But all in all, Africans expect the second term of Donald Trump to be more positive, to be more pro-trade, to make in the U.S. and Africa. Remember, Africa has been a playground of the United States and also China. So, and I believe that because of the change, President Donald Trump will probably be more positive towards Africa. But we can only wait and see.
Now, talking about Africa, what do you think might be the immediate impact, for instance, on foreign direct investment from the U.S. in African nations?
I expect the American influence and direct investment to increase. Remember, the U.S. has to counteract China. China has been making very good influence in Africa. Whether you look at the mineral sector, whether you look at the transport and logistics, China has put a lot of investment under the one road, one initiative, the so-called Belt and Road. The U.S. is by putting more investment in Africa. Remember, if you look at the Sahel, right? And I think the U.S. might try to take up that slack by putting more influence, by putting more foreign aid, and by making sure that Africa sees the U.S. more positively and a trading partner. So I expect much of the lessons. I expect Trump 2 learn from Trump 1 and more improved relationships with Africa.
Now, this phrase, America First, which Donald Trump oftentimes chants, do you see that affecting or, leading to reduced U.S. aid programs in Africa? And how might that affect development projects?
Of African countries that depend on development aid from China, from the European Union, and other countries. So if that development aid is cut off, I expect a lot of African countries to suffer. And one of the ways to suffer is they may not be able to balance their budget. So if that aid is cut off, I expect a lot of influence from IMF, a lot of influence from World Bank. But most important, I expect China to come in and fill the slack. And I think based on the fear of Chinese influence, that aid might not be cut as fast as expected, despite Trump's intentions to reduce foreign aid, foreign investment in Africa.
Now, beyond your expectations for China to fill in the fourth, how do you think African leaders should prepare for potential shifts when it comes to diplomatic economic relations with the U.S.?
That's an interesting question, because if you look at other countries like Ukraine, like UK, like Canada, like China, they have been very much prepared on Trump's second term. I've seen some of them going to Mar-a-Lago in Florida to go and talk to President Trump. But I think in African countries, we have not yet prepared for the second term of Trump, the Trump 2, I would call it. So I think that's one mistake probably. We are not prepared. So we might take it by surprise. Luckily, some African countries are prepared. I think Kenya is one of them, because we are partners. China, European Union, and other African countries. So one way to prepare for Trump's second term is to make sure that in terms of business, in terms of trade, we are more diversified. We are not dependent on one country. But I think Africans have not come up with a concerted strategy on Trump's second term, which I think is unfortunate.
Well, thank you so much for your insight on the news. Professor X.N. Iraki, economist, University of Nairobi. Many thanks indeed.
Thank you, and happy afternoon.